Welcome, everyone. This is Dan Old School Green with Dan Ring. I am hosting for Dan. Dan is going to run his usual gauntlet on the college football ring zone. Our first topic, Dan, it was a really exciting week one. I mean, many of the games were electrifying. That Florida State game was tremendous. The West Virginia game, I'm a big West Virginia Mountaineer fan, was exciting and depressing at the same time. But obviously, people want to know about the big dogs, no pun intended, with Georgia. Your thoughts on teams that impressed, held serve, and teams that you thought were disappointing.
Okay. Was a great college football weekend, and hopefully a vision of things to come as we get through the season. Before we start, my special thanks to my mentor, my host, Old School over there, and Tony Cotillo and Heat Ratio. Dan's going to be starting his Flyers talk in about a month or so, so make sure you tune into that. And his Five for Fighting as well is still going on, I think. So make sure you tune into that. But college football, I thought that Alabama and Georgia, Alabama, no surprise that they were impressive. I was really surprised at what Georgia did to Oregon. And I watched that whole game, and I'm waiting for Oregon to do something. And Oregon was ranked 11th coming in, so they're a good team. They have a new coach. It was Georgia's former coordinator, Dan Lanning, is their new head coach. And Georgia just dismantled them. There was Oregon showed no fight at all. And Georgia's defense looks as good, if not better, than last year. So it's just extremely impressive. And surprising, I think, with everybody that they lost. I think they lost 7 defensive starters from last year. And they have bringing in freshman defensive backs that are just as good as the guys they lost. So that was impressive. Ohio State, I wasn't that impressed. They had an injury early on to their best wide receiver. And Stroud was a little bit off. The running game wasn't terrific. They had to come up with a few burst plays in the second half to pull away from Notre Dame. And Notre Dame is a tough team, but I don't see them being there at the end of the season. They don't have nearly enough players on offense to compete in this college football era. So Ohio State, I think the Big Ten can take some solace in the fact that they're not going to be a be-all, end-all in the Big Ten this year. They're going to be challenged, certainly by Michigan. Michigan State's going to be up there, and Penn State has them at home this year. They have a good chance to beat them, I think. So, some hope for some of the other schools in the Big Ten. Some other overall impressions: LSU, Florida State. You mentioned Brian Kelly is going to have a tough time at LSU. I'll be interested to see how they kind of come together in the middle of the season. But I think that's going to be a tough job for him. I don't know that he's that familiar with how they play football down in the SEC, and he's going to have a challenge on his hands every week. He's not going to be playing. There's no more Navies on the schedule, and Air Force.
Boston College.
So he's going to have Alabama one week, then Auburn, Ole Miss, Mississippi State. All those teams are all going to be gunning for LSU. And one of the pundits said that LSU actually could be finished last in their division.
Could that almost amazing steal of a football game, if that had transpired, the guy doesn't miss the kick and it goes into overtime and LSU steals it, could that have transformed their season from jump, or you still think they would have had a rocky road?
I still think they're going to have a rocky road. I think that would have been a great moral victory for them. But I don't think that once they get into the SEC and the meat of that schedule, they're going to be able to compete week in and week out. Florida State's getting better, but there's no way Florida State should have won that game. With the talent disparity, it's still pretty apparent. So that'll be interesting. I think that's going to be a 2 or 3 year project for Brian Kelly. Maybe by year 4, we'll see him consistently winning 10 or 11 games down there. But that's not going to be an overnight rebuild.
And maybe his accent will improve as well.
Let's hope it does.
You remember that first interview where,
yes.
or what was it? Some kind of he was greeting the fans, I guess. He was
right.
on a southern accent.
Some kind of Cajun accent, yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, the shakeup or, the updated rankings, as it were. Alabama 1, Georgia 2, Ohio State 3, Michigan 4, Clemson 5, and we'll go as far as 6, Texas A&M.
Yeah.
Do you think Georgia should have leapfrogged Bama based on the opponents they faced and the result, or who cares? It's so early in the season. Let it just play out.
The latter. Who cares? It's so early in the season, but I think the rankings this early on are based on impressions of last year.
Yeah.
Unless again, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Florida State, LSU, they're really good games when you're playing tough teams right out of the box. You don't really know what you have. And the rankings, I mean, my personal opinion, they shouldn't even have rankings until middle of October.
It's a good point.
You don't even know how these teams are going to perform. There's injuries that happen. So, yeah, I don't think at this point it matters. I was a little surprised that Michigan moved up. I think they were 8th going in, and I think they moved up to 4. But that is all going to come out in the wash when they all start playing each other. So I don't think that matters right now.
Now, before the year started, you obviously have players on your radar that you feel are potential Heisman candidates, guys that are going to go top of the draft. Any players, even though it was just week 1, that really impressed you, that you're like they are online for the Heisman and or increasing their stock in the draft? Any players after week 1 go the other direction?
Well, the two guys, I think Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud are the two big guys that everybody's looking at as the top 2 picks. Will Anderson, he's just a dominant player. I loved him last year for Alabama. He'll be just as dominant this year. Probably finish in the top 4 of the Heisman voting. He's just a beast, and he runs Alabama's defense. I'll tell you who I was really impressed with that I've never been a fan of, Stetson Bennett from Georgia.
Yeah, me too.
Doesn't look like a quarterback, but he was a gamer. And again, the way they dismantled Oregon was really impressive. And if Georgia keeps winning and they put up points, he's going to get some consideration. He's not going to be a pro quarterback. Could carve out a name for himself as a backup, or a practice teamer. But I was actually really impressed, and I did not expect that. So he's one guy to kind of watch out for. And he's been a career backup until last year. He was kind of thrown off to the side, and nobody really gave him a chance. And he showed something. Obviously winning the national championship last year, and then proving it wasn't a fluke against a good Oregon team.
What are your thoughts on Anthony Richardson, Florida's quarterback?
I think he's a good player. I think he's raw, and I think he needs some refinement with the passing game there. He's a great athlete. They were impressive in beating Utah. I know it was a close game. Florida's always had a ton of talent, but with everything they've gone through in the past couple of years with Dan Mullen, and Napier's a really good coach, and they're going to compete. I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the thick of things in the SEC this year. So Richardson drives that team, and they're going to be good.
And Caleb Williams?
Not impressed.
Okay.
Not impressed. USC, I think they put up 55 points against nobody, but not impressed. I don't think USC – I think USC is going to struggle.
Now, this is a little off the script for me, but I'll mention it while it's on my mind. It's killed me that Penn State has a quarterback in his 6th year already. And they let a very talented quarterback in Will Levis go. What are your thoughts on Will Levis and his future as a quarterback?
Will Levis got a lot better once he transferred and didn't have any competition in Kentucky. So Clifford was always going to be the starter there. I don't think it was a fair competition when they were put head to head. And Clifford, I think they feel is a better leader than Levis. Levis probably has more physical tools. But the way they used him at Penn State was as a runner. Hardly ever threw the ball. And he had arm talent. He's a bigger guy. And I just think when he got to Kentucky, he needed a new environment, and he flourished. So I think Penn State fans wish Levis was still there, and certainly last year when Clifford got hurt. But I think they once they decided Clifford was going to be the starter, and I know he's there for 6 years, and that's a product of COVID. It kind of means that he's not good enough to leave. And a lot of fans weren't happy about that either. They'd rather see the true freshman Aller in there, which I think would be a mistake. But I'm sure they would have wished they would have had Lavis. And if they had Lavis, Clifford probably would have left, wouldn't have come back to school.
Well, the way I look at it is one's going to be a potential NFL player and the other will not. So
True.
I'd rather have Lavis, who is an NFL talent. Now, let's stay on Penn State. Your overall impressions against playing at Purdue. It was at Purdue, correct?
Yes.
How did they perform in your eyes? And is Purdue a good measuring stick for the future Michigans, Ohio States of the world?
I was really impressed with how they played. They showed heart. They showed guts. They easily could have folded up that game and left. They had a lot go wrong. Did they play great? No. Really tough environment against a quarterback who's a really good quarterback. And he was 66% passer for his career. He only completed 50% of his passes Thursday night. So Penn State secondary is good, but everybody knew that. They didn't get a pass rush. I think everybody was a little disappointed in that. But they showed guts, and Clifford showed guts after that interception. That last 2-minute drive was tremendous. That's as good a drive as you'll see in college football in a 2-minute drill. So overall impressions, were positive. They kind of have a bye this week against Ohio University, and maybe they can get their run game going. I was slightly encouraged with the run game. I know the stats didn't bear it out, but I really like these two freshman running backs that they have, and they showed something. And then Lee, who's their starter, caught the winning touchdown pass. So I think they have a good thing. They need to develop a rhythm, and hopefully the line stays healthy and they can develop a rhythm. And maybe with a little more attitude, the run blocking will improve. So overall, I was impressed.
Now, you referenced the freshman running back. I believe a top recruit in all of the country.
Gatorade Player of the Year.
Yes, and the 6'4" quarterback, Aller.
Yes.
Cannon for an arm, threw a beautiful pass that the tight end dropped. That was dropped right in between two defenders, and then Clifford was able to come back the next drive. And I'm drawing a blank. The great young defender that got thrown out for targeting, which was a horrible call.
Yeah, Abdul Carter from Philadelphia.
He looks like he's going to be an absolute beast.
Well, he only played one snap.
No, but you can just tell that the kid is.
They're really high on him. Yeah.
So my question to you is, with the running back and quarterback definitely in place for next year, the defense always is solid. When are they going to really be able to kick the door in and compete with Michigan and Ohio State?
I think next year is the year they're kind of gearing up for. Their offensive line, I believe they have one senior. So everybody else on the line is young. They're trying to grow those guys together. And I think they're really focused towards next year. And it's all about the offensive line for them. So they did a good job pass blocking. Purdue's pass rush is supposed to be pretty good, even though they lost their best player, Lavis, in the draft. But I think that they're looking at, kind of trying to get a rhythm, get Singleton and Keatron Allen in for next year to feel comfortable. Alar's going to play. So in blowouts, I don't think they had any problem with putting him in the game, and Clifford had to sit out that series either. Defensively, they're going to lose a lot. They're going to lose a lot in the secondary, but Carter's going to be a really good player. They really like him. He looks like a Micah Parsons clone.
Yeah, he does. He's built like him too.
Exactly. But they're senior laden on defense, and they're junior and sophomore laden on offense. So I think they're gearing up towards next year. But like you said, they're always solid on defense. They've recruited really well the last 2 years, and they're really high on Manny Diaz being the coordinator there, who is aggressive, and I think he showed that in the Purdue game. So the whole thing with them is consistency, and they just have to build off of the Purdue game to the next game, and then they're at Auburn in 2 weeks. If they can somehow win that game, then they have another cupcake before they get into the Big Ten schedule, and they're 4-0, and they're probably ranked in the top 12 at that point. And then we'll see what they're made of. And hopefully it won't deteriorate like last year.
Now, give me your overall impressions on the Big Ten this year. Is it going to shake out like it always does? And what are your thoughts on the expansion of the Big Ten with some of the staples of the Pac-12 joining?
Right. So the Big Ten this year probably will shake out. Although, as I said earlier, I let off the show with, I think Ohio State's not as great as everybody thinks they're going to be. Everybody thinks their offense is going to be unstoppable, and Notre Dame kind of showed that that wasn't the case. And Ohio State was at home also. So I think that's encouraging for some of the other Big Ten teams. Michigan's going to be good. Penn State, I think, is going to be up there. Michigan State, Mel Tucker's done probably the best rebuild in the past 25 years in college football, year over year. They were just terrible at the end of D'Antonio's era there. And Mel Tucker used the transfer portal to his advantage. He brought in the right kind of players, and they're going to be a team to reckon with as well. So they're going to be a 9 or 10 win team. Michigan's going to be a 9 or 10 win team. I think Penn State can be a 9 or 10 win team. So there's a lot of balance. Maryland is better, and Rutgers is better. Rutgers is no longer a pushover. Greg Schiano seems to have his finger on the pulse of how to make things right at Rutgers, and has done a great job. So the Big Ten East, along with the SEC West, are the two best divisions in college football. And the way that's going to shake out, I think, might surprise people. And the West, Iowa's always good. Wisconsin's always good. Purdue will score points. And Northwestern had a big win over Nebraska in week 1. So they might be better this year. So I think the Big Ten as a whole is really trending up. And Illinois also. They were terrible for years. And now they're 2-0, I believe. So the Big Ten is trending up. And now you're going to add in 2 years USC and UCLA. And I think everybody universally loves that move. And now you're coast to coast in the Big Ten. They're not changing the name, by the way, because they consider that a brand. So eventually they'll be the Big 20 because they're going to add 4 more teams in the next few years. And I do think Notre Dame will join.
The Big 10 plus 10?
The Big 10 plus 10. They'll have to figure out a new logo, but they'll be the Big 10. And maybe each conference will have 10 teams, so they'll figure that out and still call themselves the Big 10. But I love having USC and UCLA in. And they're going to add Oregon, they're going to add Washington, Stanford, and Notre Dame.
All right.
In the next 2 years, that'll be done. That'll be a done deal.
So that's one form of expansion. I'd like to now conclude our show with the latest expansion news. Per the conclusion of the ESPN contract, it appears that we're going to have a 12-team playoff system for the NCAA title in football. Thoughts on that? And if things kind of stay the same, does that inevitably, indirectly screw a powerhouse in the conferences we just referenced, SEC, Big Ten, to accommodate the other teams that maybe a third-place team in the SEC, which would dominate any other division, is left out? Your overall thoughts on the expansion of the playoff system?
I love it. It's all about money, as we know. So more teams means more money. And the way they're going to structure that is teams 5 through 12 will play each other on the higher seeded home field, probably in mid-December. So you're still going to have some of these bowl games going. And, the opponents of it were saying it diminishes the regular season and everything else, which I don't agree with at all. And I love it. There's going to be 6 teams. It's the 6 conference winners. So you're going to have one power group of 5 conference team in there, like Cincinnati was last year. And then 6 at-large teams. So you could have 4 teams from the SEC. You could have 4 teams from the Big Ten. It doesn't matter. It depends on how they're ranked. So I think the more, the better. And you could have a number 12 seed potentially playing a number 1 seed for the national championship. And they have to play one more game, and you're going to do it almost like the NFL. So you're going to add maybe 3 more games for a team to get to the finals. And you'll start in December. You'll go through, maybe it'll be the second week in January, it'll be the championship. But it's all about money, and it's great. And they're trying to figure out the logistics. Playing in Nebraska, playing in Penn State in late December is probably not what colleges from the South want to do. But that's the breaks. NFL is the same way. Miami doesn't want to play in Buffalo in January either. And I think it's great. And I can't wait to see how that's going to shake out. And again, that's going to be in 2024, I believe. They said 2026, but I think it's going to move up. And that's going to coincide with the Big Ten bringing in these other teams, and you have 2 super conferences, which I think is just great for college football.
No, I do too. From a person that just flat out loves football, it's just more games for me,
Right.
And that's the way I look at it. And then
wouldn't it be great to have like a team, that's maybe an 11 seed? Let's just say Houston wins, as a Group of 5 representative, and you have them playing up north against, Notre Dame. Let's just say, for sake of argument, that'd be great. A team like Houston would never get a chance to do that. And let's say they knock off Notre Dame, then they maybe get Georgia, and they beat Georgia. They can go to the national championship.
No, that doesn't happen. But what does happen, though, it helps with their recruitment process. So that's the bottom line. It helps with the portal transfers. It helps with the overall recruitment. For down the line, maybe they'll become a powerhouse. But it just doesn't feel like anytime soon you'll ever see the Bamas, Georgias, Clemsons, Ohio States ever getting out of the top 5.
Well, because they're just able to recruit.
Yeah, they just got the name right now.
Right.
It tends to be cyclical, but those teams just were the perennial. But we used to once say that about LSU and Auburn, who have fallen on hard times. So we'll see.
And the new TV contract in the Big Ten, each team's going to get twice as much money as they're getting now. So they're ESPN or whoever, CBS or NBC, is paying them like each team's going to get $100 million a year.
It's unbelievable. So the facilities are going to be state of the art through the roof. And the students' tuition will still continue to rise.
Of course.
Topic for another time.
Yes.
He is Dan Ring. I am Dan Green. We are the Heat Ratio Sports Network. I encourage you to watch all our great programming. Heat Ratio Live, which will start resuming every Tuesday. 4 for 4 Boys, College Football Ring Zone, and the great Jigsaw himself, Tony Cotillo, with his fantasy football expertise and his Jigsaw Chronicles. He is just the best in the biz. Dan, close the show with a little foreshadowing of what we're going to see this year out of College Football Ring Zone.
This year will be one of the best years ever in college football. The games, the excitement, how close they are. There's going to be a lot of upsets. And I think there's going to be another surprise team in the Final Four in the playoffs. I don't see Clemson getting there. I don't necessarily see Ohio State getting there. And I think Alabama or Georgia will lose a regular season game in addition to whichever one wins the SEC championship. The other team will have 2 losses. So I think we might see some new teams this year in the playoff, which I think is only the best thing possible for college football. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be an exciting season. And if the rest of the season is anything like week 1 and the games we got, it's going to be great to watch.
All right. So until next time, again, he is Dan Ring. I am Dan Green. This has been the College Football Ring Zone. We will talk to you soon. Be safe out there and enjoy your college football, everyone.